Breakfast Bible Bites.
Good morning everyone and welcome to Breakfast Bible Bites. Now some of you might have noticed that I'm not Liam and I'm not Ellen, I'm Jude. And Liam has asked me if I would share one of my favourite stories from the Old Testament. And I've got a famous one for you today, a very famous man called Daniel, and the story of how Daniel was in the lion's den and how the Lord saved him. But rather than me read it and show you different pictures, as Liam has done in the past, I'm going to read to you from the Jesus Storybook Bible. I think a lot of you may well have got this one already, but if you haven't and you've got your birthday coming up, then this will make a great present. So the story of Daniel is on page 152, and it's actually called Daniel and the Scary Sleepover. But if you want to read this in your Bible, it's from Daniel chapter 6. Things were not looking good for God's people. They'd been captured and taken far from home, and now they were slaves of the king of Babylon. But God had not left his people. He was with them and was looking after them. Daniel loved God and obeyed him, but God made Daniel able to understand lots of difficult things, so it wasn't long before the king of Babylon noticed him. King Darius liked how clever Daniel was, so he made Daniel his most important helper of all and put him in charge of lots of other helpers. But the other helpers didn't like him. They wanted the king to like them best, and they wanted to get rid of Daniel. So they spied on Daniel. They tried to find things wrong with Daniel. Things they could tell the king, but there weren't any. None. They couldn't find anything at all. Except there was just the one thing. Every day, 3 times a day, without fail, no matter what, Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and prayed. They smiled to themselves. Let's get the king to make a law. No one is allowed to pray to anyone except to the king. Daniel won't obey this law and he will be punished. They were pleased with themselves for being so clever and hurried off to tell the king. The king liked their idea. He didn't know they were tricking him, so he made it into a law. Everyone must pray, only to me. If you don't, the lions will have you for their dinner. Daniel heard this. He knew it was wrong to pray to anyone except God. He had to do what God said, whatever it cost him, even if it meant he would die. So Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and he prayed. That's just what the bad men knew Daniel would do. They skipped straight off to tell the king, "Oh, your most glittering highness, your law says, does it not, that everyone must pray to you alone?" "Yes," said the king. "Oh, magisterial brightness, then correct us if we're wrong, but it would seem that Daniel is praying to God, not to you." The king was sad. He'd been tricked. He didn't want to hurt Daniel, but he couldn't change his law. So he let the soldiers throw Daniel to the lions. "May your God, who you love so much, rescue you," the king said. The king went back to his palace, but he didn't sleep that night, not a wink. He tossed and turned until finally, at the first glimmer of dawn, he leapt out of bed and ran straight to the den. "Daniel," he cried, "has your God rescued you?" "Yes," Daniel shouted. "God sent an angel to close the lions' mouths." And there, resting his head on Daniel's lap, was the biggest lion, purring like a little kitten. The king brought Daniel out of the den. "Look," he said, "Daniel doesn't even have a scratch." The king made a new law. Daniel's God is the true God, the God who rescues. Pray to him instead. God would keep on rescuing his people, and the time was coming when God would send another brave hero like Daniel who would love God and do what God said, whatever it cost him, even if it meant he would die. And together they would pull off the greatest rescue the world has ever known. And I think you probably know who that is. That's Jesus. Great story this morning. Lovely to have you with us. Bye for now. Bye.